Hello everyone, I am Aditya from Section A, BCom Honors. Today I am going to talk about GST registration. I hope you gain something useful from this video. Coming to the meaning of registration, the registration of supplier under GST implies obtaining a unique identification code from the GST authorities. It is a unique 15 digits code that is unique to every individual seller. Registration basically recognizes a person as a supplier of goods and services under GST. It also authorizes him to collect taxes from his customers and pass on the credit of such taxes paid to the purchasers of goods or recipient of services. The registered person can claim the input tax rate of taxes paid by him and also utilize the same for payment of taxes due. Registration has three main advantages. First being legal recognition. The supplier gets nationwide legal recognition as a supplier of goods and services. Many businesses and large businesses specifically generally prefer to deal with suppliers who are legally recognized. Coming to the second advantage, authorization for collection of tax. The registered supplier is legally authorized to collect tax from his customers in respect of goods supplied. He can also pass on the credit of taxes paid to the purchaser of such goods. Therefore, purchasers will always prefer to purchase goods from registered suppliers so that they can claim the benefit of input tax. The third and the most important advantage of registration is benefits of input tax credit. The registered supplier is entitled to claim the input tax credit that he has paid on inputs. Inputs here means raw materials and various other physical goods that he has used for production. Second, input services. Input services here means various services that he has availed from other businesses for manufacturing and running of his business. Third is capital goods. Capital goods here means machineries and equipments which he has used for production. There are six types of registrations under CGST Act. The first being registration based on threshold limit, which is under section 22. As per this type of registration, the registration is to be done on the basis of turnover of the business. Second type of registration being compulsory registration, which is under section 24. Under compulsory registration, certain businesses have to be registered irrespective of their turnover. Third registration being voluntary registration. Under voluntary registration, businesses, although not liable to be registered, are themselves voluntarily registering themselves. That is, there is no compulsion from the side of the government, but they do it just by themselves. Third type of registration is deemed registration, which says that if a person is registered under SGST or UTGST Act, he is automatically registered under CGST Act. Fifth type of registration is suo motu registration, which will be explained later. And sixth type of registration being CTP and NRTP registration, for which there are special provisions. Coming to the first type of registration, that is registration based on threshold limit. This is covered under section 22. Here different turnovers are given and different states have to have different turnover limits for various businesses. The first turnover limit is 10 lakhs for goods or services or both, which is for the states of Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland and Tripura. The second turnover limit is 20 lakhs for goods or services or both, which is for Puducherry, Sikkim, Telangana, Arunachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Meghalaya. Third threshold limit is 20 lakhs for services and 40 lakhs for goods, which applies to the rest of India. The definition of turnover for the various threshold limits is as follows. It includes taxable goods. These are goods which are directly taxable under the GST Act. Second are exempt supplies. Exempt supplies includes three more varieties of goods which are nil rated supplies, that is goods which have a zero rate of tax. Second, goods which are exempted by notification. And third, non-GST goods, that is those goods which are not covered under the CGST Act. Next part of aggregate turnover would be exports, that is sales which are made to foreign countries. And the last part of the aggregate turnover is going to be supplies made by an enterprise to another enterprise with the same PAN. That is when a person who has two establishments with the same PAN and he makes supplies from one establishment to another establishment. The second type of registration under the CGST Act is compulsory registration. Under compulsory registrations, people have to get themselves registered irrespective of their turnover and irrespective of whether the turnover matches the threshold limit. The first in the list are persons making interstate taxable supplies. It refers to various persons who are selling goods between two states or goods or services between two states. That is, production may be in one state and the final purchase is in another state. Second are casual taxable persons. Casual taxable persons are people who go to another state for a small period of time to make sale of goods. They have to get registered 5 days before they make the actual sale. Third type of persons are persons are required to pay tax on a reverse charge basis. There are certain goods on which tax is to be paid by the recipient of the good, that is the buyer. The liability, they are liable. They are the ones who are liable to the government to pay the tax, and thus have to get themselves registered to pay the tax. Fourth, electronic commerce operators. Electronic commerce operators are websites who provide a platform to various businesses to sell their goods online. They merely deliver the goods from the businessmen to the people. Fifth are non-resident taxable persons. Non-resident taxable person is a person who comes to India for a small period of time to make a sale. He has to get himself registered at least 5 days before his 5 days before he makes his sale. Next are persons who are required to deduct TDS, that is tax deducted at source. 7 persons are persons making supply on behalf of others. This includes various agents who are making sale on behalf of their principals. Next are input service distributors. Input service distributors are persons who have a principal place of sale and various other establishments across the country. Next are persons making supply through eco, that is businessmen who sell their goods through electronic commerce operators. Even they have to be compulsorily registered. 10 persons under this category are persons supplying online database access and retrieval services from outside India, that is they are businesses who provide cloud systems and cloud storage services to people who are located in India, and thus have to get themselves registered under the CGST Act. The third type of registration under CGST Act is voluntary registration. A person who is not liable to be registered under Section 22 or Section 27 of the CGST Act may get himself registered voluntarily. There are a few advantages for voluntary registration, that is, the voluntary registration enables the supply of goods or services or both to enhance its B2B transactions, as the business units would prefer receiving supplies from the registered person only. This is because if an unregistered supplier makes a supply to a registered person, then the registered person will be liable to pay the tax. The disadvantages for voluntary registration are: the voluntary registration creates the liability to pay tax. It means that once a person obtains voluntary registration, he has to pay tax even though his aggregate turnover does not exceed rupees 20 lakhs slash 10 lakhs. However, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages, as a person who does voluntary registration brings in a lot of business, and thus that overshadows the amount of tax he has to pay. As per Section 26 of the CGST Act, there is no burden of taking registration under CGST and SGST UTGST Act separately. As per Section 26 subsection 1, the grant of registration under the SGST Act or UTGST Act shall be deemed to be a grant of registration under the CGST Act. This is done to reduce the burden on businesses to get themselves registered under separate acts. And as per Section 26 subsection 2, any rejection of application for registration or the UIN under the SGST Act or UTGST Act shall be deemed to be rejection of application for registration or establishment of UIN under the CGST Act also. The fifth type of registration under the CGST Act is suo motu registration, which falls under Section 25 subsection 8, where pursuant to any survey, inquiry, inspection, search, the proper officer finds that a person liable to registration under the Act has failed to apply for this registration. Such officer may register the said person on a temporary basis and issue an order in form GST REG/12. Person action by person. If the person accepts the order, the person shall submit an application for registration in the form and manner provided in Rule 8 or Rule 12 within 90 days from such order. But if the person does not accept the order, then such person shall file an appeal against such temporary registration with an appellate authority. If in this case, if the appellate authority upholds the liability to registration, the application for registration shall be submitted within 30 days from the date of the order of appellate authority. Moving on to the next part, that is exemption from registration. Section 23 of the CGST Act provides for certain persons who shall not be liable for registration. That is, even though their turnover may be more than the threshold limit, they shall not be liable to register. That is, the first person being persons engaged exclusively in supplying goods or services or both that are not liable to tax, that is non-taxable supply. It refers to persons dealing in those goods which do not fall under GST, for example alcohol and petroleum products. Second category of persons are persons who are engaged in supplying goods or services or both that are wholly exempt from tax, that is those goods who are although included in GST but are exempt from tax. Next, an agriculturist, to the extent of supply of produce out of land, to the supply of produce out of cultivation of land, it refers to farmers and small scale producers whose main produce is derived from land, that is fruits and vegetables, etc. Next, persons making supply of only those goods which are on which tax is payable on reverse charge basis, they shall also be exempt from getting themselves registered. So, when to apply for registration? Section 25 subsection 1 of the CGST Act specifies when a person becomes liable to be registered. A person, there are three different cases for the same. First case being person who is liable to be registered under section 22 or section 24, that is on the basis of threshold limit. Then such person needs to be registered within 30 days from the date on which he becomes liable to registration, that is his turnover exceeds the threshold limit. The second category of persons are CTPs and NRTPs. They have to be registered at least 5 days prior to the commencement of business. That is, they have to pay a certain amount of estimated tax on the basis of the turnover which they expect to generate from where they plan to make the supply, and they have to be registered 5 days prior to the commencement of the business. Third category of persons are people who opt for voluntary registrations. Since people who opt for voluntary registrations aren't liable to be registered under the Act, they can get themselves registered whenever they want. Rule 8 of the CGST rules prescribes how a person can get registered under the CGST Act. The first step is to declare PAN, mobile number and email ID. Every person liable to be registered and a person seeking voluntary registration shall, before applying for registration, declare his PAN number, mobile number, email address, state or union territory in Part A of Form GST REG/01 on the common portal, either directly or through a facilitation center notified by the commissioner. Second step is verification of the PAN, mobile and email ID. Rule 8(2) prescribes the procedure for validation of PAN and verification of mobile number and email ID in the following manner. PAN is validated by online mode. Mobile number declared is verified by an OTP sent to the mobile number. Email address is verified by one OTP sent to the email address. The third step is generation of TRN. On successful verification of the PAN, mobile and email ID, a temporary reference number shall be generated and communicated to the applicant on the said mobile and email address. Procedure. The fourth part of the procedure is apply in Part B of GST REG01. Using TRN, the applicant shall electronically submit an application in Part B of Form GST REG01, duly signed or verified through electronic verification code along with documents specified in the said form at the common portal. The fifth step is issue of acknowledgement. On issue of such an application, an acknowledgement shall be issued electronically on the app or to the applicant in Form GST REG02. The last step is verification of the application and grant of certificate. This application shall be forwarded to the proper officer who shall examine the application and the accompanying documents. If the same are found in order, the proper officer approves the grant of registration to the applicant within a period of 3 working days from the submission of the application. However, if the applicant submitted is found to be deficient, then the proper officer issues a notice to the applicant electronically in Form GST REG03 within 3 working days from the date of submission of the application. The application shall furnish such clarification information or documents electronically in Form GST REG04 within 7 working days from the date of the receipt of such notice. If proper officer is satisfied with the clarification, he shall grant registration in Form GST REG06 within 7 working days from the date of receipt of information / clarification / documents. If still not satisfied, the proper officer will reject the application for reasons to be recorded in writing. This is how a person can get himself registered under the CGST Act. The final part of the presentation will be the effective date of registration, where an applicant submits the application for registration within 30 days from the date on which he becomes liable to be registered. The effective date of registration shall be the date on which he becomes liable, that is, the date when his turnover crossed the threshold limit. The second category falls where the application submits the application after 30 days from the date on which he becomes liable to be registered. Then the effective date of registration shall be the date on which he is granted the registration. That was the end of my presentation. I would really like to thank you for watching this video, and I hope you gained something useful from this video.